Okay, we started a brand new document, but let's get more into the document section and figure out how to make stuff. So if we go to File, New, you're going to see that we have New Document, Book, or Library. Really, all we're going to worry about in most cases, I do a lot of stuff. I do annual reports, I do brochures, I do flyers, I do a lot of stuff, and I never use book or library. Okay, once in a great while, I use a library item. I make a template and save it as a library item. And basically, that's what it is. A library is a item that I can use over and over again, or we can do presets, which is much easier. Book is for those people that are doing publishing, like big law books and huge catalogs and stuff like that. We'll worry about that at a much later time, so not to worry about it. But document, we're going to come in here and make a new document. And we can do all kinds of sizes as we discussed, but we're going to just stick with the 8.5 by 11 at the moment. But let's take a look. We can have number of pages. So if we know how many pages we want to do, this is a great time to put this in. If you don't, it's not a big deal. You can leave it alone at 1. Number of columns. If you're going to make a grid or a layout grid for your document, that you want to do a 2-column grid or a 3-column grid, newsletter, magazine, whatever, it's best when you're making the first part of the document, you put the stuff in. And I'm going to show you why. So if I just leave this alone, hit create, and I go, okay, cool. Let's take a look at our pages. We have one page. Here's our page, and I get building stuff, and I go, oh, you know what? I really think I should use 3 columns. So if I go to my page and I say File, Document Setup, I can go to the Document Setup, and right in here I can adjust the columns, or let's talk about, while we're in here, let's talk about the margins. So if we want to adjust the margins, we can adjust the margins now. We can change this to 0.25, and look at, they all change together. If I want, I can unclick this, and I can say, oh, the top I want at 0.5, but I want everything at 0.25. That's fine and dandy. That's how you adjust one separately than the others. You can uncheck this. But if I check it, whatever the first one is that I was working on, it'll change them all. So let's change this back to 0.25, and they're all going to change together. Bleed. When I talked about bleed in an earlier video, here's where we're going to add our bleed. So we can say, oh, our printer wants a 1.25 bleed, and voila, I click on the next one, and the chain is there. It will adjust it for me. And then I can hit my preview button. This preview button is the bane of this makes me nuts. This preview button is never on anything we do. If you open up any window like this that changes or adjusts things, and you're doing stuff and nothing's happening on screen, it's because that preview button is turned off. You'll see it when you hit OK, but if you want to see it as you're making the adjustments, it's a great idea to hit the preview button and it will show it. Why on God's green earth they do not have that button on by default is beyond me. Drives me nuts. I've sent emails to Adobe. I don't get any response. So I'm going to hit OK. And you can hit the adjust layout button from over here. So we've got bleed, margins, stuff like that, and hit OK. Also at the top we can go to layout and we can go to margins and columns, and this will give us margins and columns. And then here is where we can do number of columns. So if I can say, oh, 2, 3, so I can do that like so. And I've got this all set up. But here's the deal. When I told you that when we make a brand new document, it might be a good idea to understand and realize some of this before you make it. Because if I go to Pages now, and this is our Pages panel, if I want to add pages, I can come up here and say, please do, there's all kinds of move pages, duplicate spread, print, new master pages, create alternate layout, page attributes, view pages, options. So if I come down here and down at the very bottom, I can say create new page, that's going to add a new page. But look what it did. It made the new page, and if I double click on page 1 and double click on page 2, you can see, wait a minute, why isn't page 2 like page 1? Because we made page 1, and now it's going to add, every page I add to this, I could add page 3, 4, 5, 6. They're all going to be added just the same size, and whatever I did in my when I created the document brand new, it's going to recreate those pages like so. Because I added columns after the fact, it will not add those columns to all the other pages. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to close this. Don't save. I'm going to go File, New Document. And as soon as it comes up, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say number of columns 3. I'm going to go to margins and I'm going to change that to 0.25. And I'm going to create, oh, and did I do bleed? No, I'm going to do bleed and slug. Slug, I'm going to talk about slug real quick. I'm going to do a bleed of a 1.25. Slug is never used. I don't use it. You will probably never use it. I don't know anybody that does use it. But when they first added this, back in the day when they made mechanicals, the bottom part of the mechanical is called the slug area, and in the slug area you would put things like little notes to the printer. Oh, please do this or please do that. Here's the colors that I'm using. So on and so forth. A lot of little things back in the days when you did mechanicals, which I used to do, and no one does mechanicals anymore. Slug at first was an idea to put some information back there. Nobody uses it, so don't worry about the slug area, but the bleed area most definitely is being used. So now I've got all kinds of things going on here. I've got columns, I got margin, I've got bleed. I'm going to hit create, and it's going to create a page for me. So now, look at that. I know that my layout is going to be a 3-column newsletter for so many pages. Even though I didn't add the pages, now that I add pages, look at that. They are going to add the pages set the way I want them because I created those columns. I did my homework. I knew exactly how many columns and what margins and what bleed and everything I wanted to do before I built the page, so that now when I add pages, that stuff is there.